Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Marina Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Karen McMahon. Karen is a certified relationship and divorce coach, and we are going to be talking today on the topic Divorce Roadmap, the secret to surviving the stress. Welcome, Karen.
Hi, Marina. Thanks so much for inviting me on.
You're very welcome. Yes, as I was telling Karen before we started the recording that I love content on the show, and we haven't had anyone talk specifically on the show about how to navigate divorce. We've had people talk about what happens after divorce. So yeah, Karen has, this is her niche, and this is basically what she does. And we're going to be talking about co-parenting after the divorce. We're going to be talking about putting down your weapons after you've been divorced so that you can let people in. We're going to be talking a lot of things today, how divorce works with your business after you, because when you're hurt and you're in that kind of space, everything in your life, your relationships, your business, and everything, you don't really seem to want to do it. I have been divorced a couple of times myself, so I understand this conversation. So stick around if you in this space right now, so you can learn some nuggets. All right, so let me share a short bio on Karen. Like I said, Karen McMahon is a certified relationship and divorce coach and the founder of Journey Beyond Divorce. Together, Karen and her team of divorce coaches encourage thousands of men and women worldwide to navigate their divorce calmly, clearly, and with confidence. Karen began her journey as a coach in 2010 after coming to the realization that her tumultuous 3.5-year divorce was a catalyst for a transformational journey into a new life. Instead of allowing her pain to wear her down, she turned inward with a laser-like focus and worked on healing herself, setting suitable boundaries and surrendering what she could not control. Karen now shows others that the shifting world of divorce is a perfect opportunity to begin identifying and practicing new ways of thinking, being, and doing. Looking at relationship challenges with a new perspective inevitably leads to deeper self-discovery, which allows individuals to boldly move forward into the next chapter of life. Karen is the host of the acclaimed Journey Beyond Divorce podcast, the co-author of Stepping Out of Chaos, Turning Pain to Possibility, and the co-creator of JBD's exclusive 12-step divorce recovery program. Her other accomplishments include work as an NYS lobbyist, health advocate, community organizer, and chairperson of an NYS nonprofit organization. All right, so with that bio and introduction, you know that she comes highly qualified to speak on the topic of divorce. So as we start off and dive right in, I remembered an interview that I had just a few weeks ago with Navy SEAL who talked about life ambushes. And one of the ambushes he talks about was divorce. And one of the things he said is like people, when they have a life ambush, they keep looking at the closed door. They don't understand that whenever you have an end, you also have a new beginning. So that's where I'm going to start off my conversation today, because Karen said that she started this work after she went through her divorce and realized that it was a beginning of something. So Karen, how do you teach your clients to turn the pain of divorce into a possibility?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. And that's a great starting question. And so the first thing I'll say is there are those who ask for the divorce and those who find themselves maybe blindsided when the divorce comes to them. And so if if you're asking for a divorce, if you're finally deciding that, you know what, I'm just going to say I want a divorce, you've been struggling in your marriage for a long time. You may have gone through counseling, but you've been on your own grief journey for some time now. And it's still super hard. I asked for the divorce. Those who get blindsided, it's like, especially a lot of people think, well, our marriage has problems, but every marriage has problems. And so when their spouse says, I want a divorce, they're like hit by, they're ambushed, they're hit by the 18-wheeler. Their grief is just beginning. And so I always like to talk about the grief journey, because the person who's ambushed is immediately in denial. Oh, are you seeing someone? You're just going through a midlife crisis. You're just confused. This can't be happening. They start bargaining. They go through this whole thing. And a lot of people who have decided to divorce will think their spouse is being manipulative, when in fact, they're really in this grief journey, or this, it's almost like a barrel going round and round there. And so regardless of which path you're on and when you started, it's very easy to focus on your spouse and what's wrong with them and all the reasons they're bad that caused you to be where you are. And most people find themselves there. And what we really like to say is, look, if the decision has been made for you or you made it, then there's not a lot of point of focusing on the other person. And you're about to go through one of the most upending, transformational transitions. Let's keep the focus on you so that we can say, what did you bring to the table that didn't serve you? Like, what baggage came from your childhood or from your previous relationships? Because when you're divorced, you have to live with you. You want to go out and find maybe new love, and you don't want it to be the same person in a different body. So let's keep the focus on you.
Yeah. That's very, very true. And, like I said, I've been divorced a couple of times. And yes, basically what I do, I said to myself, right, I'm divorcing you because you're not doing something that I want. You're not doing something for me. But I'm in a current marriage right now. And just recently, I recognize, I was going through those same things, what am I not getting? Da, 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 da. And then I realized that everybody comes into a relationship with, I'm going to use Eckhart Tolle's words, their own pain body. And a lot of times what we're doing is we're seeing what the other person is not doing, but we're not seeing what our faults are. What is our pain body? What are the things that we are doing to trigger the other person that's making it go around in a circle and all that? So you're right. Whether you recognize what it is that you contributed to the divorce, or you just decided that, hey, you know what? I'm going to concentrate on me. I'm going to be happy. I was just listening to an interview this morning, and the person was saying, what is this that make me happy? I'm no longer going to be a people pleaser. I'm going to go out and decide that I'm going to be selfish, because I'm going to want to understand. I need to know what makes me happy. So if you go about it by that, what makes me happy, then I can understand you going into the possibilities of what can happen. So, diving a little deeper in that, when you talk to them about the possibility, are you talking to them about the possibility of relationships, career? What direction are you taking them into?
Well, we're calling this the roadmap. And so if we start in the beginning, I was just speaking to a client earlier today, and this person knows they need to leave. And so there's so much, it's like, when do I tell my spouse? How do I tell my spouse? What do we say to the kids? When do we say it to the kids? If it's a high conflict marriage, do I tell them individually? Will mom or dad throw me under the bus and hurt the kids if I tell them together? And then we go on from there. And with all of these questions is the emotional load that you were just talking about, the emotional pain body. And so we at Journey Beyond Divorce, we support people very powerfully, both on the practical journey, which is telling the spouse, telling the kids, finding an attorney, figuring out your finances, how do I negotiate, how does the court work, that whole journey. And as you're going down that journey, what's coming up, it's like you've jumped into a murky pond, and all of the silt, everything, all of your shortcomings, all of your insecurities, all of everything you need to heal, hone, and refine comes bubbling up. And so now you're in an emotional tsunami after just being drop shipped into a foreign land called divorce, where you don't know the language, you don't have a guide, and you don't know what the heck you're doing. It's really a powerful, powerful opportunity for personal transformation and reinvention, because basically it's a hot mess.
Yeah. I love your visuals. Yes. Yeah. Everything comes up to the top. Yeah. All your insecurities. Why did this person divorce me? Why, if someone cheated, why, if someone decided to abandon you, like come home and not want to talk to you, why? And yes, all your insecurities bubbles up to the top. I love that.
Yeah.
So you gotta skim it off, and yes, I love that. Okay, so you also touched on something there about the kids, which is both of my divorces was with kids myself. I have 2 kids, and I divorced both of my spouses. So now mine was a long time ago. So we didn't have this new thing where joint custody and co-parenting and these type of things. You just, one person had custody and the other person come to visit. One of the things that you teach is how to do effective co-parenting. So can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, and it really can and should start as soon as the decision's made. And so in today's day and age, the majority of people get 50-50 custody. And the reason is, I think that to a large degree, our dads are much more engaged and active dads, and they want it. And many times I've worked with so many men who are like, I'm a high-powered whatever, making a lot of money, but I'm going to now readjust my work schedule and my career because I want to be that big of a part of my kids' life. And so when the decision is made, and you might still be living under the same roof, it's a good time to start saying, let's experiment with this co-parenting. And this is always hard for, especially if it's a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home parent, because you're so used to this being all your division of labor. And so now you have to give it up. And so one of the things I talk to both, whether I'm working with a mom or a dad, is let's start creating a parenting plan so that you can have some time with the kids. You can start, if you're the parent who wasn't the primary parent, you can start getting your feet under you. Like, okay, so first you're going to take the kids for a half a day, or if you're living someplace else, that first overnight, what do you need and how do you have to set up your place? And so there are all of the early stages of how do you talk to them and what kind of time do you want to spend with them? And then in some cases, it's as basic as, do you have a list of their friends so that if you want to schedule a play date while they're with you, do you know their pediatrician's name and number? And so part of co-parenting in the early stages is getting used to a schedule. You might want 50-50, but you travel or you work long hours. And so you'll realize on your own, I want it, but 60-40 is going to make more sense. And so it's so much easier when you start practicing, because then your ideal and what's reasonable might be different. And then as you get post-divorce, there's just a lot of logistics, and everyone runs into this. We have an article on our website that really talks about the logistics. In today's day and age, unlike 16 years ago, they may not be sending kids home with textbooks as much, but we needed to ask for 2 sets of textbooks, one for dad's house and one for mom's house. We needed to decide which of my daughter was an all-star soccer player. Do we need 2 sets of everything, or do we just have a list, a checklist of things that we pick up with the child when they go from one place to another? And what if tests are always Friday and one parent has a tendency to let the kids stay up late and play video games? Do we want Thursday night to be a custody night when we want our child to be, well slept and fed when they go in for their tests? And so you begin thinking about things that you really don't think about when everyone's under one roof. And the more logistics that you can write down that might be an issue, and then what's the best way to handle it. If you don't do that, you will absolutely find yourself in the blame game. Well, you did, well, you should have. And, there's no value in that. And that harms the kids. And that's the other piece I want to talk about. When co-parenting, and this is straight through the divorce, not only don't you speak to your child about what's wrong with their other parent, they are 50% that other parent. So not only don't you do that, you don't get on the phone with your girlfriend in the kitchen complaining about your soon-to-be ex while the kids are watching TV in the living room.
Because they're always listening. Yep.
And it does such incredible harm. And so I spoke to a professional. She was an attorney for the children. She said, one of the questions I always ask is, tell me why your co-parent is a good parent. And she said, if that person has nothing to say, that's a huge red flag on the person I'm talking to, not the co-parent. And so it's really important to delineate. I'm divorcing, and I'm going to use him just for the sake of simplicity. I'm divorcing him because he wasn't a good spouse or partner. Let's not assume that means he's not a good parent. Two incredibly different things. The attorneys aren't going to find value in what you're saying. The judge isn't, if you're black and white like that. And so it's really helpful to say, I know my soon-to-be ex is a really good parent in these ways, and maybe not such a good parent in these other ways. And that's going to help you formulate what you need to support the children. You're not going to tell them mommy or daddy is bad in these ways. You're just going to fill in the gaps. You're just going to soldier up and do what you have to do. And if the thought in your head is it's not fair, get over it. It's not fair. But you're loving your kids. And so you're going to do what's best for your kids. And if more of the burden is on your shoulders, then be grateful that you have the emotional intelligence and capacity to be there for your children. Because when we can have our children have at least one healthy household and emerge reasonably whole, we begin to break generational chains of the same thing happening over and over again.
That's true. That's true. As I'm sitting here talking to you, because I've never done the co-parenting thing, and it sounds real complicated, and I'm wondering, they're doing it because it's I guess benefit the kids. Do you find that it does?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
I would say, I work a lot in high conflict divorce. And if you have a parent who has severe trauma, personality disorder, addiction, alcoholism, if you have a very high conflict co-parent, the children are better spending more time with you. But children, unless those people are dangerous, it's always valuable for them to experience both parents on a regular basis. And again, if you have one high conflict personality, it's so vitally important that if you're married to the high conflict personality, I can guarantee you've lost your temper, you've raged, you've been a people pleaser, a codependent, you don't have boundaries, and you have to work on all of those things to become a whole and healthy person so that you can teach your children those skills so that they can navigate that high conflict personality. You get to divorce them. The children have to find the lanes that work for them, the safe places where they can really enjoy that parent and know that they have boundaries and protection, and know that it's not their responsibility to take care of mommy or daddy. And again, I love talking about the breaking of generational chains, because that's really what we have an invitation to do when we go through divorce.
Yeah. Showing the children that even though mommy and daddy are divorcing, they both still love you and they both still want you. You're right. It's important. It's important for them to get that message that both mommy and daddy love them. And I guess that's why the co-parenting thing is so popular now. All right.
And
So,
can I, there's one other piece that if I could talk about with co-parenting. Sometimes it was my experience, it certainly is the experience of a lot of people in the higher conflict. Sometimes the children come back from the other parent and they're upset. They've been put down, they've been ignored, they feel diminished, they don't feel heard, they might not feel loved in the way they want. They can come back to, I'm going to say mom just for simplicity, really struggling. And the worst thing that you can do is criticize their dad. Wow. And I want to say this because it's so vitally important. If your child comes to you and they're struggling with the other parent, ask a lot of questions. What happened? How did that make you feel? What did you do about it? What do you wish you could do about it? What were you afraid to do that you wished you could do about it? Why are you afraid? How can I help you? How would you do it different next time? How do we help you be able to say to daddy or to set a boundary? And now I haven't said a bad word about the other parent. Right. And when a child is hurt or struggling with a parent, the other parent's opportunity is to build emotional intelligence and resilience and awareness in your child. And so a friend of mine said, nobody's useless if they're particularly displeasing. They can act as a good example. And so you can take any difficult situation and use it to grow your child into a healthier person. And that is so much better than, oh, that son of a gun, he always did that to me too, or whatever that sounds like.
Right. Wow. Well, you're saying something that's absolutely totally foreign in my experience, because in my experience, whenever there's a divorce, they usually I think I was having an episode the other day and I was talking about how love and hate, right? Eckhart Tolle talks about how love and hate, it goes so quickly. It's just like a switch, right? And if a divorce happens because irreconcilable differences or something along those lines, where you've been living for a while and it's not working out, and you decide to divorce. But a lot of times, and you're calling it high conflict, I'm assuming that you're meaning high conflict where someone infidelity, or you really hate your spouse, male or female, but let's stick with what we're talking about now. Mommy hates daddy because daddy hurt mommy. And you have to share your kids. You don't want to. And the kids come over and they're telling you, daddy's doing that. You're going to jump on that opportunity to bash that man. There's absolutely no way that we're going to be, daddy's not a bad person.
Well, so, now I didn't say that, but jumping on the opportunity to bash daddy is as good as kicking your kid in the stomach. And I mean that. So it's like, so, and actually there are plenty of people who divorce and are angry and hate each other. That's actually not high conflict. High conflict is when you're divorcing someone who takes zero responsibility. And I'll say this because I think it's important. In today's day and age, everyone's like, oh, you're divorcing a narcissist. I have a hard time with that. we're not psychologists, we don't know that. But what we do know is if you have someone who has very black and white thinking, who always blames you and can't take responsibility, who seems to have a different memory of almost everything that happened yesterday or in history than you, who can't sit down at the table and negotiate anything because they want everything or they're right and you're wrong. There are personalities where there's a divorce is a negotiation, and negotiations require transparency and compromise. Personalities who can't do that for a whole host of reasons, they fall into high conflict. Most garden variety divorces involve someone who hates the other one or who's outgrown them and they're not interested in them. And wherever you fall, and no matter how you feel about your ex, please hear me. It is never, ever going to be valuable for you to tell your child how bad their parent is. And that's a hard stop.
Yeah. Yes.
Tell your girlfriend, call and talk to somebody else, complain all you want. You got to get it off your chest.
Listen, I agree with that totally. In my community, women don't even want, they fight tooth and nail for the kids even to see the parent because they hate them so much. So I was just letting you know what I've been soaked in for all my time. Yes. In your world, yes, we have this nice, sweet divorce and co-parenting thing. And in my community, yes, you don't want nothing to do with them and you bash them. And you're right. Because what happens is that the kids are come up emotionally troubled, and they hate, they build on your hate, and they don't like their dad, or they have all these bad feelings about their dad. And you're right. When I went through my divorce, I with my daughter, there's certain things about our dad that, I find, let's put it that he wasn't that great of a person, dad, or whatever. But you know what? My daughter is now 34 years old, and she would tell you that her father loved her because that's what I wanted to portray. Even though he wasn't maybe like paying child support and he wasn't doing this and he wasn't doing that, all I wanted her to know is that her father loved her, and that whenever she wanted him, that he would be there, even if he didn't do any of the other things. Because I know that it's important to know that your parents love you. But that's basically why I wouldn't do it. But yeah, you're right. It's like a kick in the stomach because they grow up, thinking that their father never loved them and their mother this, and and then they go on and you talk about generational curses, or you probably didn't use the word curses, but you keep repeating the same cycle. And that's what basically happens, right? So
and here's what happens when you stay neutral about the other parent and you focus completely on your child and their struggle and what can you do and how do you feel. That child may come, if let's say the other parent is really displeasing to be in relationship, really hard, that child will come to that decision on their own in their own time. And let me tell you, that's so much healthier than them adopting mom or dad's opinion, because that can turn into resentment later on too. So it's like when we let them, it's not easy. I mean, I had many days where I cried my eyes out because my kids were so struggling with their dad. But my only job was to help them with their struggle. What they decided to do with their dad, they were going to figure that out on their own in their own due time. And then the decision is theirs and it's healthy and they know why, and they can stick to those choices.
Yes. Well, that was good. This was a good conversation to have because it's a very, very important one. A lot of people probably struggle with this. Yes. Yeah. And I love, I saw your emails about the high conflict divorce. I wasn't able to listen to the episode, but thank you for clarifying what that is, because trust me, a lot of people will identify with someone that can't negotiate, can't talk, have the emotional whatever as a, yeah, it is, yes, I can understand that, period, totally. All right, now one of the other things we talk about, so thank you, by the way, for going in depth of this co-parenting thing. Now one of the other things that you talk about in your work is, after the battle of the divorce, when the divorce is final, that women, I'm assuming, yes, let's put that there because that's who usually have the problem here, that we, put down our weapons and take off our armor and start to trust again. And, a lot of people, when they've been hurt, when they've been betrayed, put up walls. And I understand the armor. So how do you teach women, let's stick to women, to become vulnerable again and trust?
Right. That is one of the most important questions. And, I hope that everyone listening, that you can receive this. When our trust has been broken, it usually starts with us breaking our trust in ourselves. And what I mean by that is most of us will say, there was that quiet little voice inside. I knew what I knew, but I didn't want to know it. I wasn't ready to admit it. I saw that characteristic in him, but he was just so handsome and sexy. I wanted to ignore it. And so when you start rebuilding trust, don't bash yourself, don't criticize yourself, don't condemn yourself for what you did. Be incredibly compassionate with yourself and start tuning in, because our fear voice is like this loud, amplified voice, and our inner wisdom, our intuition, is this very soft whisper. And when we can start tuning into the soft whisper and trusting our intuitive hit, our women's intuition, that is going to be the foundation of building trust. So you might think, I can't trust men. And I would argue, you haven't yet learned to trust yourself. When you trust yourself, you're going to know to stay away from certain of those men that you didn't in the past, and you're going to be guided. And now you've got this foundational trust in your judgment of people and your intuitive hits. It's going to be much easier to go out and then, of course, take it slow. I was talking to a therapist the other day, and he said, it takes about a year to really know whether or not someone's a good partner for you, because in that amount of time, life happens. Trials, tribulations, you get to see how they are when they're aggravated, frustrated, disappointed, lost a job, broke something. And so, and the same with you. And so trust is built over the course of time. And when we meet someone and we're like, oh my God, he's my soulmate, and he blows my skirt up, and boy, are my juices flowing, and I'm like all excited. You've completely lost access to your frontal cortex and all your decision making. And so you want to slow it down so that you really can tap into your reason. And that is one of the best ways to begin to build trust. It has to start with getting real honest about how much you're trusting your own intuition.
Yeah, that's true. I actually heard 2 years is, I think I got that from eHarmony. eHarmony says that it takes 2 years because before then everybody's wearing masks. And if you've been someone for 2 years, then you're going to see who the real person is. But I find that the reason that women don't trust themselves is because maybe they just keep picking the wrong people. And after you've gone through it a couple of times, you can't trust your intuition because you keep picking the wrong person. But
and I would say you're picking the wrong person because you're not tuned into your intuition. I know for myself, like my ex, and I wasn't a kid, I wasn't 19, I was 34 years old when I got married. And I thought I was out on my own at 19. I got 13 years under my belt. I know what I want. People say to me, were there any red flags? You know what my response is? It was the 4th of July finale, and I just turned my back and didn't pay attention. There were red flags everywhere. And I've been doing this for a dozen years. I've yet to meet a client who didn't admit that there were red flags that they turned a blind eye to. So we don't just pick the wrong guy. We ignore our gut and go with something hoping. And then how many of us as women, I'll love him to be better. I'll change him because I love him so much. So there's a lot of what I like to say.
Or he'll change for me because I'm the one.
and so it's like, so when we just stay with what we have control of, I do think that that you start seeing a huge shift, and it's a vital part. I have to trust myself.
So that's good. Trusting yourself, trusting your intuition. When you see those red flags, don't run from them. Yes, I agree totally. We all bury a lot of those red flags, and we bury them for whatever reason, whether we're lonely or you're right, he's so cute, or you're thinking that maybe you're imagining it and all these different things. So I understand totally. But yes, I like the fact that you said, though, that that after we finish battling our husbands and battling, then when it's over, the divorce is final, the assets have been, distributed, we've got 50-50 parenting and all that. It is the time to relax and say, okay, that ended. Now what's in front of me? Just like we started off talking about the possibility maybe set do right now, if I were to put my little 2 cents in, have something that you write down, the law of attraction. What is it that you're looking for in a partner? A lot of people will say, you know what, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want that, because that's what I had the last time, and I want this, and that. But whatever it is you do, have a clear outline of what you're looking for, and the law of attraction will usually bring it to you. So
I'm so glad that you said that, because I was going to say, and don't have it in your head, pen to paper, and because, and some people, like, they'll give me a list of like 6 things, and I'm like, intellectual, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial, relational. There are so many things that we know what we want. And the clearer you are about what you want, and I would say you should also have your list of non-negotiables.
Right.
For me, and this is just me, I'm not judging anyone else, I cannot date a man who smokes cigarettes, just on a very basic level. I used to smoke. For me, that's a deal breaker. For someone else, it might be you have to have the same faith as me. For someone else, it might be I'm really physically fit. I want someone who can at least go out and enjoy. Whatever your things are, I'm a real family person. I don't want someone who doesn't want to hang out with my family. Get clear on what your non-negotiables are, and keep adding to the list. Have fun with it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to add that too. And Google adjectives and write as many adjectives as you can down. And that's going to really serve you well. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Non-negotiables, your line in the sand. Right, exactly. Boundaries, we can use a lot of words for it, but it's very true. Now, before we wrap up, I want to touch on one of the things that a lot of people don't think about, and that is going through a divorce. When you're an entrepreneur and you have a business, or maybe even going into the corporate world, because when you are not emotionally, at your peak, then everything falls around you like dominoes, right? So what are 3 ways of keeping your business running smoothly during a divorce?
Oh, so you want three. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to
Or you
say
could just give me one,
is,
but
no. I think that's a brilliant question. So, and I talk about this so often. So the first one is you're going through the largest transition of your life. You're not going to be on your A game. So adjust your expectations.
Yeah.
Number one, adjust your expectations. If you've got some enormous campaign that you've planned for this upcoming year and you're going to be in the courts and juggling kids and becoming a single parent, you're basically setting yourself up to maybe fail on both fronts. So adjust your expectations. And that's whether you're a C-suite person or in management or running your own business. And the second thing is to realize what's going on. And I'd love to describe this. So when we're going through divorce, so life is busy and overwhelming for all of us. Now you add divorce, it's almost like being on your computer and adding this huge database that's going to download onto your computer. You know, when you download something, it's like every program slows down, it gets really glitchy, it just freezes. That's what's happening in your brain because you're like, who's my attorney going to be? And how do I know all my finances? And how do I negotiate that? And what if he wants too much parenting time? And you've got all of this stuff that's constantly downloading. And so have grace and compassion for yourself and know that you're not losing your mind, you're not falling into dementia, you're simply in a stage where between the intellectual and the emotional energy that's needed to navigate the season, that your capacity is diminished. So adjust your expectations, be aware of what's happening so that you're not judging yourself. And then I'm going to give two more. One is have a healthy support network. So of course, you know, I'll say like hiring a coach, and therapists do different things than coaches. So hiring a coach helps you both logistically and emotionally, and a good attorney, and you might need a financial planner. But on a personal level, what is your all-star support team look like? And Myrna, I bet you could jump in with this. Everyone who loves you isn't necessarily good for you at every moment. And so you may have someone who loves you who's going to hate your soon-to-be ex more than you do, who's going to kind of pour into the problem and how bad he is instead of focusing on you and how strong you are and what's next. And so an all-star support team really are people who are emotionally healthy, who can keep the focus on you and who can lift you up when things get really hard. So that's vital.
That's my mom.
It was my mom too. Yep. Yes. And the last one would be get educated. There are a lot of moving pieces. Don't take your girlfriend or your neighbor's advice on what your divorce is going to look like. Do the research, speak to the professionals, and make sure that you're educated going through it. And that's going to really help a lot.
That's excellent. Awesome. But you know something, Karen, this has been amazing. Now, you have designed a 12-step divorce recovery program, which sounds really great because what you're saying is, hey, you've got to recover from this. What are the steps to recovering? What is the steps to making, you know, your next life the best? I'm assuming. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we found that over the course of years, we started looking at what are the typical emotional challenges that people face. And we created the 12 steps around that. And so the first one, which would be a surprise to nobody, is to curb the conflict, right? Because no matter what kind of a divorce you have, there's going to be conflict. And what we really do in the program is say, you know, how were you raised? Are you afraid of conflict? Do you go into your cave? Do you yell and scream? Do you blame? Like, let's keep the focus on you and look at your behavior. And here's how you can do things differently. And then we have another one that's about calming the chaos. Most chaos during divorce doesn't happen outside of you. It happens between your ears. It's your stinking thinking. And so what are your assumptions? What are your interpretations? What are your limiting beliefs? What is that you're such a bad person, you're not worthy, gremlin voice in your head? We talk about switching out judgment for curiosity. We talk in the 12 steps about becoming less problem focused and more solution focused. We talk about how to grieve and grieve well and the importance of feeling your feelings and so many more. And so each step is really helping someone pivot in one area of their emotional experience of divorce. Most clients say everyone should have to go through it because emotionally it up-leveled me so much. It gave me so many tools and strategies to use, and not just during my divorce, with my teenager or my adult or my cranky boss or my displeasing neighbor or whatever it might be. And so that's what that's all
Skills
about.
are always transferable. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's amazing. All right. So how can our listeners and those watching on TV, get in contact with you, talk about your website, how they can get hold of the course? I follow you already on Instagram. You can tell us your handles.
Yeah, so we're Journey Beyond Divorce on all platforms. So it's Journey Beyond Divorce podcast, Journey Beyond Divorce website. We're Journey_Beyond_Divorce on Instagram. And if this high conflict part of the conversation resonates with you, we just created a toxic quiz, and it's on the homepage, right at the top of the homepage. How toxic is my relationship? And it's 10 questions, and it gives you a really good sense of the health or lack thereof of your current relationship. And all of our programs are on the homepage of JourneyBeyondDivorce.com.
Beyond Divorce. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
That is great. You're right. I'm glad when everybody sticks to one handle. It makes it easier. All right. Well, listen, Karen, I learned a lot about the co-parenting, trusting again. Some of the steps as far as getting into the possibility when something ends. I'm glad that you kind of adopted my language of ambushing and when something ends and go on to the new beginning. So that's amazing. We had a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your knowledge. Guys, go ahead and put Karen's podcast in your rotation. It is Journey Beyond Divorce, so that you can, like I said, I did see the high conflict episode. I mean, it was sent to me by email. I definitely need to watch at it. But yeah, if you're going through a divorce right now, doing co-parenting, if your divorce has ended, there are so many nuggets that you can pick up from this conversation. Knowledge is always power. Knowledge is never a waste of time. So definitely do that. And if you want to go deeper, like she says, she has the 12-step divorce recovery program. And I almost wanted to ask you if at the end of the 12 steps or one of the 12 steps, you go and ask forgiveness, which is like the alcoholics one. Probably not, right?
Forgiveness is a big issue. We talk about it, but we have baby steps.
Baby steps, right? That just popped into my head because I know the alcohol one is that you got to call people and make amends.
Make amends, yeah.
The one that you've hurt, but hey, it doesn't hurt if there's if you were the cause of the divorce and you did something that was to hurt your spouse, then there's nothing wrong with calling and when you're healthy and calling to say that you're sorry and make amends and things like that. So that's awesome. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. A transcript of my conversation with Karen will be on the show page, blog.myhelps.us. So I would also link out to her website and her Instagram and Facebook handles. Karen, any last words before we wrap up?
I would just say one of my favorite sayings is every upset is a setup. So if you're triggered and you're upset about something, don't look outside of you to the other person or circumstance. First go in and start looking at what are my triggers, what are my buttons, and why am I so upset?
Yes.
And you will handle the situation much better.
Yes, clarity. It's the first step. It's the first step.
Yep.
Amazing. All right. Well, listen, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Karen. Until next time, namaste.
Thank you.